Okay, good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and open up public comment. Time is 6:30. Views expressed by individuals during public comment do not necessarily reflect the views of the city of Fremont, have not been verified for accuracy by the city. As a reminder, city council and staff are not permitted to respond to comments or questions during the public comment period. In accordance with Fremont Municipal Code Section 2-103, public comments will be limited to, we do 5 minutes per person and shall not contain topics included on this evening's agenda. There's comment cards also in the back. If you are here and wish to speak, please come to the front and sign in. We'll go ahead and start. Brad Yerger.
Brad Yerger, 2318 East 5th Street. Tonight, I'd like to challenge you to be more proactive as a council in pursuing the items that haven't shown up on the unfinished business for completion or under new business. When will the following items show up under unfinished business? Landscaping for the Tech Park Detention Cell Project, South Claremore Railroad Project contract signatures, library's correction of their annual report and their CIPA certification as required by Fremont Municipal Code, immigration lawyer $10,000 retainer fee payment, which was approved in the last 2-year budget, city's use of ARPA funds, detour traffic plan for the Bell Street viaduct shutdown. And when will these items appear under new business? Proposals for the police station, the 2022 fiscal year audit, public discussion of the next 2-year budget, library policies and procedures for book selection and placement, as well as the required CIPA certification filtering. In regard to this last point, as council members, you all took an oath to protect the health, safety, and well-being of our community. That includes ensuring the mental and physical health of our children and grandchildren. That oath of protection entails following state and federal law and recognizing and enforcing the definitions regarding obscenity, sexualization of children, pornography, material harmful to minors, and sexual excitement, just to name a few. Enforcement not only means using your positions to control the content of the books physically placed in the library, but the material accessible via digital media using library resources. The Child Internet Protection Act requires filtering, and the city's municipal code requires annual certification. Certification by the library can't be legitimately occurring without documented internet filtering processes and procedures. Failing to comply with this filtering requirement and other state and city code requirements constitutes a punishable offense for violators as outlined in the Fremont Municipal Code. It's my belief that due to an apparent lack of leadership, inaction, or reliance on a misguided moral compass that doesn't comport with the community's norms, the mayor, the city administrator, the librarian, the library board, and this council have been enabling Fremont to go woke. This has occurred by creating and facilitating radical fringe group sexualization and gender identity indoctrination of our children. By allowing this to happen in our library, you've endangered our children's physical safety, polluted and confused their minds, and worked to destroy their innocence. Mental health issues, sex trafficking, and moral decay are on the rise throughout the country, and there's evidence that it's here in Fremont as well. This must stop, and you're in a position of leadership, and your actions can make a difference. Although the library board's decision to remove the "This Book is Gay" from the children's section was unanimous, moving the book to the adult section is mostly symbolic. Access is not controlled, so that action has little to do with protecting children from the harmful material that's required by law. So where can you start? A good start would be by overturning the library board's relocation decision and ordering the removal of "This Book is Gay" from the library. Appropriate book procedures would be next. This step requires that the library board craft, purchase, and classification policies and procedures that this council must approve. To that end, I encourage you to take immediate formal action at your next meeting to instruct the library board to remove the "This Book is Gay" and to initiate drafting such policies that would require your procedure with regards to purchase and classification. Thank you.
Scott Preston.
Scott Preston, 1717 East 12th Street. I do want to start by saying that the library board did a good thing 2 Mondays ago by moving This Book is Gay from the young adult section into the adult section. However, the board missed an opportunity to do what they should have done, which is to get that trash completely out of Keene Memorial Library. And before I go further, I want to be clear that my opposition to this book does not have to do with the fact that it deals with LGBTQ topics. My opposition is rooted in the explicit sexual language contained in the book, which, regardless of where it's located, is targeted at minors. By choosing to keep it in the library, one of two things has to be true, and neither one of them is good. Number one, if there are less sexualized books available about this topic, and this book was selected and kept over the others, that means our library director and board have committed themselves to providing sexualized material to children. Or number two, if every book covering these topics uses explicit sexual language, what does that tell you about the agenda of the types of people writing these books? I would contend that they're not promoting acceptance, but rather exploiting and sexualizing youth who are extremely vulnerable. Unfortunately, there's not a third option here. They're either providing sexualized material when there's an option not to, or supporting the work of those who would exploit children. There's no excuse for this and no defense. Why do I bring this up now? Well, there's a couple of reasons, with the first and foremost being that I was denied the opportunity to say this at the library board meeting. The board's legal counsel advised them to not have public comment because, as I recall, it constituted new evidence which should not be considered during an appeal. But given the nature of the letter that the library director sent in response to the removal request, I wouldn't say we wanted to present new evidence, but rather it was an opportunity to respond to what the director said, which went far beyond the scope of the removal request. If you look at the request itself, it was very simple. It stated that the book was grossly obscene and therefore harmful to children, and also pornographic in nature and could make children more vulnerable to predators. However, the reply was far-reaching. It did indeed, very poorly in my opinion, address the claims of the book being obscene and pornographic, but also completely ignored the statement that the book could make children vulnerable to predators. But even more than that, it additionally cited a portion of the library manual that you guys should be ashamed of, since it gives them the permission to order whatever profane material they want for the library. And if you don't believe me, you should read the manual. It listed 3 positive book reviews and also called upon the Radical American Library Association, whose president-elect is a self-identified Marxist. This letter introduced new evidence to the case, so to speak, and we didn't have a chance to respond to that. The letter broadened the scope of the argument such that the book can never really be challenged again, even if on a different basis. Shutting out the public from the process was a bad look for the city, and in my view, unfair to both sides of the debate. The second reason I bring this up is because this council has final oversight of the library director and board. You could choose to put this book on an upcoming agenda and vote to remove it from the library. It is clearly within your power. However, I think that cowardice will prevent you from doing that. If you think this book is so great and vital to the public good that it needs to be in the library at all, why not go on the record with a vote? Are you afraid of what the public in this generally conservative town might think? Are you worried that voters would turn against you if they actually knew the truth of what you believe? Well, as it stands, the position you've taken is to support a director who takes cues from an organization run by a Marxist who says, and this is a direct quote from the president-elect, "So many of us find ourselves at the ends of our worlds. The consequences of decades of unchecked climate change, class war, white supremacy, and imperialism have led us here. If we want a world that includes public goods like the library, we must organize our collective power and wield it. The American Library Association offers us a set of tools that can harness our energies and build those capacities." You know, I'm part of a group that's being accused of having an agenda, and I'm tired of it. The real agenda is right there in the words of the Marxist. Believe them when they tell you who they are and what they want to do. And if you don't want that mindset and agenda infiltrating and bringing disgrace to this city, I'd highly recommend taking the first step in standing up to the director by getting This Book is Gay out of Keene Memorial Library.
Sandra Murray. You.
Sandra Murray, 1745 North Knight Avenue, Fremont. I didn't prepare anything to talk to you about tonight, but I just really wanted to come up here. I do plan to appeal that book. I'll appeal it and give that to Glenn, who is my city council person. I really want you guys to think about this book and the books that are being put in our library. I know you think, just from the things that you've said, that maybe what I think is obscene is not what the other people think is obscene, or maybe what I think is inappropriate, the rest of the community doesn't feel like is inappropriate. The pictures and the graphic pages in this book are horrible, but the two things that I'd like to bring your attention to is that, and I will give copies to Glenn so that he can share this with you. There's a chapter in that book that tells children how to download their pictures onto adult sex sites. This is a danger to children. Why would you tell a child that? That is just completely crazy. And then there's another page on there that tells kids how to go to sauna rooms where adults are having sex and engage in sex with adults. So to me, it's like not only a matter of children's safety, but it's unlawful. It's unlawful according to our town. It's unlawful according to our state. It's unlawful federally. And it just is appalling to me that the whole library board, everyone on there said, this book's inappropriate. Let's put it in the adult area. But I say that's not good enough, because their whole point is there's a section of our community that needs this book and needs to be able to have access to it. So who is that section? Is it sex offenders, pedophiles, sex traffickers? There's a problem with sex trafficking in Nebraska and in Fremont. Who is it that needs to read this book in the adult area? It's written for children. It's got cartoon pictures. Who needs to read this book in our community that is going to be good for them? So I do plan to give a letter of appeal to Glenn, and I would ask that you guys look at it and just, instead of worrying so much about your thoughts that our ideas of what's appropriate and what's not may be different from the rest of the community, maybe consider child safety and what is and isn't lawful. Thank you.
Okay, we are in open public comment until 7 o'clock. If you wish to speak, are just coming, please come to the front and sign in. And there's also comment cards in the back. Right here, sir. You can go ahead.
My name's Scott Thomas, and I handle human rights for the state of Nebraska. So I'll be going and looking at what books are or are not in our library. And I think she was correct that we have laws on the books for enforcement. I'd be curious to see anybody who wants to stand behind the books I've heard mentioned to this point. And I guess I'm gonna go look at the books for myself before I make any further comment. Thank you so much. Is it permissible to leave and come back? I mean, there's nobody comment. Up to you. I can sign in again.
No, we only get one time, only one time. Yep. You can fill out a card, which is in the back. Yep.
That's all right. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, I want to welcome everybody to the city council meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll go ahead and open the regular city council meeting. The time is 7 o'clock. The opens meeting is posted on the rear wall next to the agendas. At this time, we'll have roll call.
Please vote for roll call. Eight council members are present, Mayor.
Okay, next is mayor's comments. Tonight, I would like to recognize 3 individuals for service awards. First is Chad Smith, 10 years of service. Chad Smith has been with the city of Fremont as a police officer since 2013. Diana Schurz, 5 years of service, has been with the city of Fremont as a dispatcher since 2018. And Jennifer Dam Shuchik, 5 years of service. Jennifer has been with the city of Fremont as the director of planning since 2018. And Jennifer's here with us. Come up and accept your service award. Thank you for your service. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to the first item on the agenda is a motion to adopt the current agenda for the April 25th, 2023 regular meeting. Councilwoman Ganem.
Move to adopt the current agenda for the April 25th regular meeting.
Councilman Jensen. Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Moving on to appointments. Item 2 is a motion to approve the recommendation of the mayor to appoint Maggie Hyatt to an unexpired term on the Utility and Infrastructure Board for a term ending June 2025. And I'm pleased tonight to present Maggie Hyatt to join the Utility and Infrastructure Board. Maggie is a graduate of Midland. She works in real estate here in Fremont. She's also on the board of the Fremont Area Young Professionals, as well as a diplomat with the Fremont Chamber. So really excited and thank her for her willingness to step up. So I'd take any questions on her appointment from the city council. Councilman Jensen.
If there are no questions, I'll make the motion to approve the recommendation of Maggie Hyatt to the Utilities and Infrastructure Board.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 3 is a motion to approve the recommendation of the mayor to reappoint Dan Weddle to the Civil Service Commission for a term ending April 2029. Again, this is a reappointment of Dan Weddle to the civil service. I appreciate his again service to this board and again wish to reappoint him. So I'd take any questions from the council. If there are none, I would take a motion to approve. Councilman Sukram.
I'll make the motion to reappoint Dan Weddle.
Okay. Councilman Vaughn.
I would second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Moving on to public hearings is item 4, resolution 2023-094, approving application for a Class C liquor license for Peruth LLC, doing business as Simo Pasta and Wine at 414 North Main Street.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This item was published in the Fremont Tribune on April 14th. There's a report in the supporting documents from the police and planning department, and the hearing is held for tonight. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions for staff from the city council? Okay. I'll now open the public hearing. Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Mike Kelly, 2804 South 87th Avenue in Omaha. This is a new restaurant, we hope, you with your blessing, with Italian cuisine. And we're here for any other questions that you might have.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Any other comments from the public on this item? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Additional comments from council. If there are none, I would take a motion. Councilman Von Baron.
I'll move to approve.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Now moving on to the consent agenda, all items in the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda from staff?
Mayor, I would ask that items 9 and 13 be removed for some clarification.
Okay. Councilwoman Ganem,
I would like to have number 11 removed.
are there any other items from council or staff? Okay, seeing none, any items from the public? Okay, I would take a motion in that regard to approve the consent agenda items 5 through 8, 10, 12, and 14. Councilman Jensen,
I'll make that motion.
Councilman Sukram,
Second.
cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, item 9 is a resolution 2023-095 adopting the FEMA policy number 108-023 and documentation requirements for recipients required for compliance with assistance to firefighters grant award number. I'll let you
Thank you.
address.
So it was brought to my attention before the meeting that items 9 and 13, the backup materials were switched for those two items. And so I think the simplest way to correct that would be to switch the resolution numbers for these two items so that they correspond correctly to the supporting documents and then refer to the correct documents in the backup. And so I would just ask that the city council take action to approve item number 9 with the corrected resolution number of 2023-102.
Okay. Are there any questions from the council on that? If there are none, I would take a motion to approve or amend the resolution number to 2023-102. Councilman Jensen,
Yeah, I'll make the motion to amend resolution 2023-095 to 2023-102.
okay. Councilman Sukram,
I'll second that.
okay, cast your votes to amend with the corrected number.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Now I'd take a motion to approve the resolution as amended. Councilman Jensen,
Make the motion to approve the resolution as amended.
Councilman Vaughn. Second. Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 11 is resolution 2023-098, authorizing the retirement of Fremont Police K-9 Apollo to his current handler, Brianna Ryan. Chief Elliott.
Good evening, Jeff Elliott, Chief of Police. What you have in front of you is a request to retire Police K-9 Apollo to its current handler, Brianna Ryan. Dog is 7.5 years old. It's done its time and it has reached an age where it is set for retirement. And Brianna Ryan is requesting that he be allowed to retire and she would take care of him for the rest of his life. I take any questions.
Councilman Jensen.
This is pretty standard procedure, is it not, for the handler to take the retired dog once they're done?
Yes, it is. We've retired dogs before, canines before, and they've always gone to their last handler. So.
Councilwoman Ganem.
Actually, I just didn't want to bypass an opportunity since Apollo is here in the room and certainly his handler to recognize the service that Apollo has given as well as his handler, and certainly appreciate that the handler is going to take care of Apollo for the rest of his life. So with that, I think it would be in order to give a thank you to Officer Brianna and also Apollo.
Right.
Good dog.
He's real happy to be here.
I'd say give you a service award, but that'd be pretty challenging. Yeah.
No, again, thank you so much for your service, and he's been to some schools and certainly appreciate the service that our canine friend has given us. Okay, you know.
Are there any questions for Chief Elliott at this point? Okay. Seeing none, I would just take a motion in regards to this item. Councilman Vaughn.
Motion to approve.
Councilwoman Ganem.
Second,
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, and then item 13 is resolution 2023-102 to approve and accept the EMS ambulance ARPA funding from the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services for ambulance purchase. And Tyler, do you want to address this, please?
This would be similar to the action that we took on item 9. We would be amending it to 2023-095. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Councilman Jensen.
With no further discussion, I'll make the motion to amend resolution 2023-102 to read 2023-095.
Councilwoman Ganem.
second,
Okay, cast your votes to amend.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
I would take a motion in regards to this resolution as amended. Councilman Von Baron.
So moved. Approve as amended.
Councilman Sutton.
I'll second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Okay, moving on to new business is resolution 2023-100 authorizing approval of the professional services agreement amendment for the runway 1432 pavement rehabilitation project at the Fremont Municipal Airport.
A little closer this time. Good evening, Justin Zetterman, Director of Public Works. This should be the final contract amendment for the design of the airport runway. The FAA is requiring us as a part of the grant application to update what's called Exhibit A. It's basically a property map for the airport. So Olson will go through and do all the title searches and just all the information, check for easements, and get that map, which is already a part of our airport layout plan, updated and make sure there are no issues that would cause the FAA to be uncomfortable with this grant moving forward. So.
Okay. Questions? Councilman Ellis.
So it's going to bring our total for Olson to 641,000
Yes,
for the project design.
Design and construction.
Okay. And our portion is going to be 64,000 of
Yeah.
that.
We'll pay 10% of that.
So this 20 that we're approving today is part of that 64.
It would be lumped in with their total, so it would end up being $2,000 of this would be
Okay.
what
Thank
would directly go to the city.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Comments from the public on this item? Okay, seeing no comments, any additional comments from council? If there are none, I would take a motion. Councilman Sukram.
I'll make the motion for resolution 2023-100.
Councilman Jensen.
I'll second.
Cast your votes.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Item 16 is resolution 2023-104 approving the master fee schedule for the city of Fremont and the Department of Utilities and to authorize staff to assess those fees accordingly to the users of those services. So I don't know who wants to take this item.
To begin with.
Okay.
And then- Okay. Thank you, Mayor. We put together the master fee schedule. There is a little bit of a change in kind of the formatting of it, but then also we took some information from that the public was requesting and kind of included some information with with where those fees are really coming from in either the state statute or municipal code or resolutions passed by the city council. So hopefully that helps, as time goes by, we'll further refine that information and improve the accuracy on that as well, and maybe drill down and continue to update it as, our code and resolutions are updated. But I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you might have about the master fee schedule. And then I believe people are here for individual fee schedules to kind of explain some fees on an as needed basis.
You want to go ahead?
So first of all, we just kind of FYI, we very likely will ask the council to continue this item, but we wanted to have some input from the council and public on what we're about with this. I'm going to go ahead and ask Nick Hansen to come up first and go over kind of what his rationale was on some of his fees and the process that he went through. And then Jennifer Dam will do a similar presentation. Those were two that had sections that we had a lot of questions on.
Okay. Nick Hansen, do you want to?
Good evening, Councilman. Nick Hansen, Parks and Rec Director. I'm sure you've seen the master fees here. Basically, we have a few increases through our facilities, through our pools and through our Ridge Cemetery. I'll take questions on why we think we made these increases, as we basically have looked at other communities. We kind of compared everybody. We increased a few things just for balancing our revenue and expenditures, especially into the pools. We haven't really changed anything in Splash. If anything, more of the private pool rentals, where we start looking into things that it costs quite a few lifeguards to have on hand to have a pool party. These are the things that we looked at. Cemetery, we've compared prices with Calvary, Memorial, Kearney, Columbus, Norfolk. We try to be the lowest. We're still the lowest cemetery in Fremont. So with these increased prices, we are still lower than Memorial and Calgary. Calvary. So with our increases of fertilizer, labor, gas, this helps offset some of that cost that's coming up here over the years. We haven't changed any prices in about 4 to 5 years in cemetery. So that's why it was recommended where you might see a bigger jump than usual. The community centers or the auditorium and the Christensen Field, you'll see some increases there. The same thing comes into the cost of cleaning is the biggest factor. Cleaning, labor, all comes into it. Some people don't realize that we have the Friendship Center that we also rent out, but there is quite a cost to actually get that torn down and then reset back up for the senior center. So you'll see a higher increase in the senior centers because of the labor cost that goes into it. And I believe recreation, I think we kind of stayed the same. Yes, we stayed the same in most of the recreation part of it. And I will take any questions available.
Councilwoman Ganna.
When was the last time fees have been raised? Do you know?
For which part of it? For the facilities, our facilities?
For Parks and Recs?
It's been more than a year and a half because they weren't raised when I was here. We haven't raised anything yet. For Parks and Rec, the pool has been probably about 6 years since the pool has been changed in Ronan. Same with the private pool rentals. It's been about 6 years that we've changed anything in those. Like I said, the cemetery was anywhere about 4 to 5 years.
Cemetery I get because some of those had to be, and we have to be competitive and to pay for fertilizer, and the city picks up the slack and they haven't met. They don't have a budget like Parks and Rec does. And you've been living within the budget so far, right?
Yes, we've been fiscally responsible.
It's just that when I've looked at some of these increases, You have 67% increase in the pool rental at Ronan to match. I know you were trying to get to match Splash Station. And some of these increases, 43% for, oh, well, that was the grave, but community centers, you have 50% increase in the West Room. That's just significant. 59% increases. They just seem pretty significant. 127% increase in using the Friendship Kitchen Center goes from $55 to $125. That just seems, to me, it just seems out of line a bit on some of these costs for people. And when I went through it, it just doesn't seem appropriate that we would be asking that much of an increase. Using the PA system goes from 30 to 50. That's still a 67% increase. And I didn't know if you can go back and kind of look at some of those things, because I know we want to match communities, but maybe they should be lowering their prices instead of us raising ours. Does that make sense?
It does, but at the same time, there's also commercial rates. And
Yes,
there's
I saw
regular
that.
rate.
I
And
saw
that's,
that. That's a
when-
different.
when you're seeing the bigger increase, it's probably from a commercial rate because they're charging somebody to come in, and we have not charged probably, in my opinion, enough to be able to make up our costs. And that's why you might see a higher 120% on like a kitchen or a PA system, because we never charged that before.
Well, the PA system and for the commercial, I can understand the higher increases because they are commercial and what you have for the community room. But a lot of these prices I'm sharing is for the regular community, as I can see it. And Christensen Field the same way. 41% increases just seems tad high, $425 to $600. I didn't think that was for commercial. That is a commercial rate. Okay, I take that back. Just seemed high, and we're increasing the cost, $20 per child on entrance into the swimming pool areas. After a certain number of family, they hit 6, and then after that, it's $20 per person. They're the ones that probably are least able to pay. And I wondered if there could be some shifting or re-examining some of these percents and what we're charging our public, because we should be providing these services as we want to increase the quality of life according to our comprehensive plan. And what I'd rather see in the future is I'd rather have small increments of increases rather than wait 6 years and have these larger increments. And we're in a time of inflation and people are struggling. So I'm just real conscientious about some of these costs in some of these areas.
Can I continue?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I totally see where you're coming from, and we've looked into it. And we can always adjust them. I mean, this is our recommendation on these prices. That's up to you guys to decide if it's too high or too low. But we look at it as in everything as in some of these have a factor for different things. So if we increase the Ronan pool up $1, we also have to increase our coupon book up $1 or up to 40, or else it kind of defeats the whole purpose of that part of it. Right now, I mean, technically somebody could buy a coupon book if we increase the prices. If they wanted to buy 10 day passes, it would be no different than buying a $4 day pass right now. So they still have that option if they can afford that $40. A membership, we didn't change the membership. It's still $70 for a season pass. We think that's quite low compared to other surrounding areas. Christensen Field and the auditorium, we take in factors of the cleaning. We have the cleaning contract that comes in there. Some of those cleaning contracts, it doesn't matter if it's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Whoever comes in there to clean, they're charging that $100 a time. And if we're only charging them $75 on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, well, then we're eating the cost of it. And that's what we kind of looked at. So it might seem like a high price, but at the same time, when we haven't changed anything for 6 years, that's why we're in this predicament. And then, yes, we'll have smaller increments when we can get to where we can.
Can you briefly just talk a little bit about the increased costs that you are seeing? And I know, the Parks and Rec is a service to the community. It's not built at all to make money. It's not even built to break even. It's heavily subsidized by the city as a service. And so all the point is that we're just trying to cover our costs to an extent, right? Especially of the use. And as a lot of that, when you're looking at Christensen Field and the auditorium, it's the cost of cleaning, it's the cost of, of lifeguards to staff it. It's the cost of the use that is being generated by the person actually using the facility. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And as in, yes, as a subsidy, the Ronan, I mean, we're trying to, it is close. We were minus 28,000 in Ronan, just in Ronan last year. This is why the increase would help us try to balance that back out a little bit for us. Splash, we were minus 66,000. So pools don't make money. So there's a way to try to then, yes, with the labor costs of going up for our lifeguards and then for pool parties, as in it takes 14 guards and a head guard to run a pool party. And for 2 hours, that's why we see that increase, because we're trying to get there as close as we can.
No, and I get that. We've doubled our salary for lifeguards. I understand that. And we needed to because we couldn't get any lifeguards, or the kids aren't applying to be lifeguards. And that used to be kind of a posh job that people look up to lifeguards. So I know there have been increased costs and cleaning costs, $615 just for cleaning Christensen Field every time it's used, and you're charging $650. And that doesn't take into account utilities, doesn't take into account if any staff has to come in and do anything extra. And I understand that as well too. Just that when we get hit with such large increases, 127%, that just seems out of line. And I'd rather see you come back on a regular basis with small increments rather than we need to catch up. We need to do this, or we just need to make more money to cover some of our costs. It just didn't seem right to do this. So I'd like, and as when we finish here, I think coming back and kind of relooking at some of that would be helpful. Additionally, maybe we need to think out of the box a little bit. And we have a wonderful facility at Christensen Field. Now, as I talked with you earlier, I evidently misunderstood, or we miscommunicated, because the group is not here that had about 400 people coming to town or more. And we didn't use Christensen Field. They didn't use Christensen Field because it was going to be charged $650 a day, and they only needed a couple hours or a breakfast on Sunday. And it didn't seem right to pay a full day when you weren't going to be there, and you have one cleaning crew come in on Sunday.
Right.
So they're going to be down in Sarpy County Fairgrounds instead. But Fremont lost out on about 400 people spending their money. Hotel rooms, because there's usually a guarantee of at least 40 or more people coming from all over, and we could highlight our city. But maybe advertising that we have a great facility that could be rented, because the more you rent it out, the more funds we'll get, and that would be helpful. Correct?
Correct. And we're rented out for the year. I mean, every weekend is rented. So it's there. People know about it.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Hanson here? Councilwoman Lathrop?
Having been planning a wedding, I'm very familiar with charges for properties and venues and such. I don't think it's out of line at all. What I would question is, we were looking at some of these, some of them did offer, if you want to come in early and have a few hours, they would charge an hourly rate for those couple hours for the day before, or a couple hours the day after. Maybe that's some way you can utilize that too. Mm-hmm. And then another thing I had a question on, Do they do Meals for Wheels out at the Friendship Center?
Yes, they do.
Are they charged that? the
That's tied in with E
$125?
ENOA.
It's paid for by them?
No, a person that
Is
comes
there
out
grant?
needs to pay the $4.25 if they want to come in, or the Meals for Wheels is ENOA. That has nothing to do with us.
But they don't use the facility?
No,
Oh, okay,
ENOA does.
right.
Yes, they have that agreement with them that they have an
Okay.
office there.
Oh, just the office.
Yeah.
They don't use the kitchen to prepare that?
No.
Oh, I misunderstood that at the meeting. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah, Jennifer Dam wanted to come up as well.
Good evening. For the most part, the fees that are going up are compatible with surrounding communities and their fees. The conditional use permit from $425 to $500, for example. Legal notice is increasing due to the cost of increased publications. I've added a fee for the legal notice for redevelopment plans and blight studies. Those have to be noticed twice for the planning commission and twice for the city council. So we have double costs for that. So I've proposed to double that cost in the fees. I have added a section for the PACE agreement. It's an energy kind of funding that we have never used, but it was approved to be used by the city council in the past. The state statute fees are pretty standard, and all of our Nebraska communities have those specific fees. We had no fee for an enhanced employment area application or to administer an occupation tax. So I'm proposing that that fee be consistent with the redevelopment plan, and to administer the occupation tax, that the administrative fee be 1% of those costs of the proceeds of the bond. I talked with Dan about that. That should help with the issuing costs and the costs of the bond agencies. Site plan review would increase to $100. I'm going to skip down a couple and then I'll come to the subdivision improvement review at the end. We're proposing that waiver requests increase from $425 to $500. That makes it a little bit more consistent, and variances also increase so that the waivers and the variance requests are all consistently priced. And increase from $400 to $500 for a zoning change. And then finally, we proposed a subdivision improvement review fee, which would be 1% of the construction costs. The goal was to recapture the costs that Public Works and their staff incur in reviewing plans and following through inspecting subdivision infrastructure as it's put in place. This is a standard cost in the metropolitan area, the Omaha metropolitan area. It is not consistent with other communities. So we want to step back on that and have a chance to have some more conversations about that and some conversations with the local development community. So we would ask that this be held over so that we can have those conversations. Probably should have had those conversations first. I apologize that we didn't. But we will have those conversations. Are there any questions?
Okay. Councilman Von Baron.
Yeah, Jennifer, I had, and I think you might have, I lost a little bit in the verbiage, but the subdivision improvement review. I understand the code provision. Could you go back to that? That is for city costs.
The subdivision improvement review
Yes.
proposal? Yes, it is basically the cost that the engineering public works department incur. The 1% is a standard cost that's used in the Omaha metropolitan area. So that was suggested to us to use that as the percentage. The way development occurs in the metropolitan area is a little different than it occurs here. In Omaha and Sarpy County, they use SIDs. So the way the financing works is different.
and the type of development. It's a larger scale development than what we have typically seen here locally. So we really want to take a step back and say, is that really a fair and accurate number? And before we move forward with that as a recommendation, we want to make sure that we're being fair to everybody.
Yeah, that would be appreciated. I think it's kind of in line with our other comments that have been made regarding construction costs being what they are. And that's nobody's fault, but it's another 1%.
Another
Average home is probably
1%
at least another $3,000.
could hit you in the solar plexus. Yeah. So we want to be
I
fair.
understand. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions for staff? Is there any other staff here that wants to speak on this?
Do have comment on one thing that I noticed in the schedule, the transfer station fees. We push those out into the future to give the haulers an opportunity to adjust their fees, given that fact. And in here it says effective May 1, we would obviously move that forward to some date to be determined when we bring it back to you next time. So, okay.
Okay, really the goal tonight was to bring this before the council, get feedback, some more feedback. It looks like we did that and come back with a fee schedule the next meeting that we can look at and approve. So I would take a motion to continue this to the next meeting. Councilman Jensen?
I'll make the motion to continue to the next meeting.
Yeah. I didn't mean not have public comment. So I'll take some. Yep, we'll take that. Yep, public comment on this item.
Brad Yerger, 2318 East Fifth Street. First off, I'd like to thank the clerk for adding the additional reference information that appears on the fee schedule. That's very helpful. So I appreciate that addition, and I made use of that today in doing some research on something that the clerk and I talked about earlier with regards to street vendors versus mobile food vendors. And as the council will recall, back in 2022, the council approved a significant section of code relating to mobile food vendors. And the fees are reflected in the fee schedule there at $100 for an annual mobile food vendor license and $100 for a renewal. And they can go from location to location. And we need to be clear, I think, in the fee schedule that there's an annual fee and there's a renewal fee. And that's really not my question or my issue. My issue came when we looked at whether or not the $40 fee was still applicable. And in our discussion today, it was discovered that Resolution 2011-078 references the $40 fee. The real question then is, well, what is that for? And it's a street vendor discussion that appeared in that resolution, which was never put into city code. It was just a resolution. It probably should be included in the section where we have mobile food vendors because it is unique. The real question that I started to have after the fact, and I think that you should consider going forward as we look at whether or not that should be put into code and reflected here, is Resolution 2011-078 had some vagaries in it in and of itself. That is that you wouldn't be able to do this street vending in city parks unless it was approved by city council. That may be still appropriate. You have the question about whether or not this fee applies to both public and private parking lots or city streets. The original resolution was not totally clear, I don't believe, on that. And when you come to the $40 fee, it really wasn't clear as to how long does that fee last. Was it an annual? Was it renewable? I think there was discussion when we did the mobile food vending discussion that they didn't want to pay a $40 fee every time they moved to a different location in town because it was $40, $40. And so all of that was at least cursory discussed in the mobile food vendor licensing approach, but perhaps not covered as fully as it should have been. But that may be why you didn't see the $40 fee, and we had to go back to 2011 to find where that the source of that comes from. And I applaud Tyler for looking that up and sharing and educating me in that regard, having discussions with legal. But I think in order to completely improve that section, it's probably gonna, if you want to keep the $40 fee in there, we're gonna need to see some code work to embody that. Because I don't think the resolution's totally clear anyway, and it ought to be brought up and brought into code so that you're not fishing for something, that's 10, 12, 13 years old, that's not in Fremont City Code. So I encourage you to do that. The other thing that I would call to your attention that I noticed is there's one addition relative to items associated with animal control fines and penalties. It's called reckless owner, which was just put in by City Council as a part of the animal control ordinance. We had some discussion about this in the committee that's working on animal control rewrite. That right now says you have to show up. It's an appearance ticket. That may be appropriate. We hadn't really discussed it per se, but there are numerous other fines and fees in there that I think the group will want to discuss. Because we've had some cursory discussion about making sure that those are all identified in the fee schedule. And quite honestly, that repetitive ticketing should be incremental. That is, if you get a $25 ticket this time, if you get a second offense, it's not $25. It's going to be something greater so that you get in the habit of following the code. So I don't know whether or not those things will come back to council as a part of this fee schedule in a timely enough fashion to be incorporated now as you continue this item, or you're planning to continue this item. I don't know how long, but we'll need to address those animal control fees and charges that will be imposed potentially either by the city or the court. So I encourage you to think about that as we develop this going forward. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public on the fee schedule? Okay, Councilman Jensen had a motion to continue. Is there a second? Councilwoman Ganem,
Second.
cast your votes.
The motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
Motion to adjourn. Councilman Jensen.
So moved.
Councilwoman Ganem,
Second.
cast your votes to adjourn.
Motion carries 8-0, Mayor.
We are adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.